Hello, welcome back to my channel. So, I have an impulse control problem when it comes to buying books. I'm sure many of you can relate, and when I learned that Barnes & Noble was doing 50% off hardcovers, so we're going to do a mini haul because I have 5 books here. So mini, right? Like I didn't totally lose control or even spend over like 50 bucks on the books on sale. We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I thought it would just be fun to do a little bit of my Barnes & Noble 50% off book haul. The first book I got was The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan Hay. First of all, love this cover. It is an absolutely stunning cover, and even like inside that first like art page, so good. It is about, as far as I know, 2 sisters who live in this like futuristic eco city where one sister has gone missing, the other one is like this STEM prodigy, and they're dealing with like a bunch of climate change disasters. So the sisters are basically just trying to find each other. Casey is looking for her sister Celia. Celia has disappeared, and apparently like on the dust jacket it says that like Celia has a lot of secrets, but like so does Casey as she's trying to find her. It just seems like it would be a really cool futuristic like thriller sci-fi type of story. I saw this on like TikTok or something, maybe Goodreads, I don't remember. Somewhere, I saw it somewhere online that this was described as like a Black Mirror meets Studio Ghibli type of book, and I will eat up anything that has like Studio Ghibli inspired. I mean, I have a Totoro in the back of my video, so love Studio Ghibli. So I can't wait to actually get to this. The next book that I got for half off was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I know nothing about this book. I read like the first few lines in the dust jacket and I was like, yeah, I'm good to read this book, because basically there's this woman, she owns an apothecary in the 18th century, and she like sells to a very particular clientele as long as they're like rising up against the oppressive patriarchy. Basically, she sells poisons. So I'm in my head imagining like a ton of poisoning men, which who wouldn't want to do that? Anyway, there's like this time skip aspect to it. I think it's like 200 years in the future. A woman in London, in like present day London, finds like a vial of this poison from the apothecary, and like the two are just linked through like time and history, and she's considering using the vial on her cheating husband, so just seems like a really good time. The next book that I got is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. I know absolutely nothing about this book. I just knew that because of the cover and because it was written by an Indigenous author, I really wanted it on my shelves. I made it a goal of mine to read much more diversely and be much more aware of the books that I've been reading this year. And when I was kind of looking at my stats back from last year, I realized that I really wasn't reading any Indigenous voices, and that was a problem for me. So this year I've picked up Elotsoe. I've also picked up The Firekeeper's Daughter, obviously. So I'm really excited to be reading a lot more Indigenous voices for the rest of this year. And the last book that I got from the sale portion of my haul is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Iyamidi. I have seen this book all over Instagram, all over YouTube, all over TikTok, and I'm just so hyped for this book because not only is the author going to school in Scotland, which another one of my bookish goals was to read more books set in Scotland, more books by Scottish authors, while this also technically falls under like that umbrella of things, because the author did talk about how the book was partly inspired by her experiences going to school in like a all-white setting that is Scotland. It's described as a Gossip Girl inspired thriller where it deals with racism and has a badass female main character, and it's just a really relevant social commentary on race relations in the world right now, especially in regards to Black folk. And also I think the other main character is like a scholarship student, and while the girl main character, her name's Chimaka, and while she is Nigerian and she's also rich, because the backdrop of this book is against, you know, like a private academy high school, and while she's rich, the scholarship student Devin is not. So when all of these like Gossip Girl-esque texts start coming out, they kind of link the two together, even though it seemingly appears like they have nothing in common. I'm just really excited to read this. I have spent a few years growing up as like one of the only people of color in all white spaces. I lived in Pennsylvania for a stint. I lived in Southern Ontario for a stint, so I know what that's like. Excuse you, truck. So I'm really excited to see how it's going to be tackled in this. And obviously, like, I know it's definitely not going to reflect my experiences entirely, because I grew up as a brown person in those spaces, not a Black person in those spaces, and distinction matters when it comes to talking about these kind of racial issues. Nevertheless, so excited. Also, just like, this cover is so stunning. I absolutely adore it. So those are the 4 books that I got on sale. I'm really quite stoked because a lot of these have been books that I've been intending to get for a really long time, or they've been on my radar for a really long time. But of course, when I walked in to get these books and realized that there were other books that I wanted to get, I spent an agonizing amount of time trying to figure out what was the one book that I was going to walk out with full price, because I should not be buying any more books right now. Buying books was definitely a COVID related issue for me. Like, I've always been a lifelong book collector, but I definitely amped up my book purchasing habits during COVID as like a coping mechanism. So trying to dial back on that, yeah. So let's just talk about the final book in this haul. So the last book I got is Daughters of Sparta by Claire Haywood. And if you know absolutely nothing about me, you just need to know that I am an absolute hoe for any sort of Greek mythological retelling. I was definitely someone where in my adolescence, I started writing some time travel, Greek mythological inspired romance novel. I don't know where the draft of that ended up. I basically abandoned it like 2 months into writing it. It was really awful because I'm sitting there as like a 15-year-old who's never been in a relationship, and I'm talking about like some epic lifelong love that's like spanning across lifetimes. Like, who did I think I was? Anyway, this book is about 2 ancient princesses, Helen and Clytemnestra, who are basically, like, if you know nothing about Greek mythology, I'm sure you know Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships. There's a bus backing down my street. Anyway, so since it's a retelling, it kind of follows the 2 princesses as their father like promises their hands away in marriage to Agamemnon and to Menelaus, who, you know, these girls have been betrothed to. And instead of like focusing on the male driven characters in these Greek mythology, it really seems like it's going to be evaluating like more of the princesses' choices, like how did they get here? Are they fighting back? Because there's a specific line on the back cover that when the weight of their husband's neglect, cruelty, ambition becomes too heavy to bear, Helen and Clytemnestra must push against the constraints of their society to carve new lives for themselves, and in doing so, make waves that will ripple throughout the next 3,000 years. So, really excited for this. And also this cover is just so pretty. I am a sucker for a good cover. But yeah, those are all the books. I only got 5 books, so I'm actually really pleased with myself. Let me know down in the comments if you guys were aware of the Barnes & Noble half off sale, if you picked anything up, what did you pick up? I would love to add new books to my TBR. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me and watching. I hope you are all having a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, or night, just whenever you're watching this. I hope you are being kind to yourself. I hope you're having a wonderful time and enjoying the summer sunshine if it is summer where you live. And I will catch you all in my next video. Bye.